Because
even though, you know, there are several re-releases that have taken away content and you didn't complain beforehand. Like, a funny thing was this game, if we're going to, you know, die on that hill, this re-release technically removed something. It almost feels like even the game designers realized the soul thing was ass, because a feature of this, you can actually link to another player to trade souls. That was a feature in this, but it was, of course, gutted for this collection. Even though you could have had a, like, online trading, you know, function, but fuck me, I guess.
Or at least local.
Well, the thing was local, that would, because this collection is on everything, not just Switch. Having, like, a local player trading for, like, the Xbox or something would get kind of awkward. So I can understand why they, you know, wouldn't do that one, because that's like a funny thing. The Battle Network collection, because it's an integral part of Battle Network, that has, like, chip trading through online, except the Switch is the only console that has the ability to trade locally, because you could do it with, like, one Switch being in handheld mode.
My point. I am now tired of these big YouTubers just adding to this nonsense. Because you're constantly just moving the goal. And you're not some epic group of, like, Robin Hood-esque white knights that are stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. You're entitled whiny babies that feel justified in wanting everything for free, and your want for everything to be free, you need the most thin veneer of this is technically true, but it's, again, fucking obnoxious, is bringing up the most random bullshit. And bringing up how, oh, you know, Nintendo might re-release a game, but then Carson's Chester Cheetah example is the sort of peak of the basis of, oh, but this Chester Cheetah game is probably never going to get re-released, and without emulation, you would have to spend, like, hundreds of dollars, depending...
Even though, because that game is shit, I believe that game's loose Super Nintendo cartridges are super fucking cheap, because no one wants this, because the game is known for being ass.
And this goes back to the thing I was saying, maybe we should be mad at scalpers, and maybe we should want laws that make scalping culture to be regulated, instead of being mad at Nintendo. But
don't you just love having to rub your taint on every pixel in a search action game to fill out the map? I sure do. Just like how I love exploring an area that I didn't go to before and finding a weapon that would have been useful 3 hours ago. I almost feel like the light sword is too early in this game. Because there's so much shit that's just garbage compared to it. And not even for the, oh, it does more damage because of it doing holy damage. No, I think a lot of things just literally have worse attack. I'm doing this intentionally to make myself small. I'm gonna see how low I can get. 20 it is. Oh, damn it.
I just wanted to, like, kind of ramble, because now, with Ryujin's gone, and everyone for 5 minutes until we kind of move on, and how fucking dare you, Nintendo?
Just wait until Sony takes down the PS4.
What's funny in a video talking about this kind of thing, and I'm like, oh, I am waiting for you to eat your words, or they're like, Sony is pro emulation, like would never do this. Even though, first of all,
as soon as people get Bloodborne running on the PC,
first of all, Sony and Microsoft would never do this. Yet the Bleem Connectix case was literally Sony being mad about emulating their current console.
Yeah.
Idiots.
Ow, damn it.
Did we all collectively forget that? Doesn't matter if you could semantically make the argument that Sony lost that shit, even though it was like settled out of court and stuff. Sony would never do this. Sony cares about the customer.
No, they fucking don't. As soon as people get Bloodborne working on PC, they are probably going to shut that shit down. Especially if they are planning to actually have a, like, selling Bloodborne on Steam themselves. They're going to probably shut that shit down real quick.
They would have shut it down faster if it was completely, decently functional. Because, regardless of how you feel, emulating a console that's on the current fucking market is going to piss off the people selling it.
I feel like someone wants to sell me something.
Let's really, like, and be honest without getting mad. If, hypothetically, and I could prove, especially if I did some witchcraft to make this work on lower end computers, if I could hypothetically prove to you that I had a reverse engineered PS5 emulator that had like flawless compatibility, how many of you would all of a sudden not want to pay?
Yeah, that's like a video about emulation. I don't remember if I agreed with everything they said. I don't think I did. I can't fully remember, but something I did agree with them on, because it is 100% true, is because they brought up the whole people will say it's like, oh, piracy is a Surface problem, and they were like, if there was a competent emulator for the PS4, you people would be doing the exact same fucking thing for the PS4 and like Xbox One if they had good emulators.
People want things for free.
Yes.
And people feel entitled to get things for free because
long way back around,
people feel entitled to get things for free that they don't want to pay for. And you're using the idea of preservation and accessibility as a thin veneer to justify basically...
Yeah, hit me more. Go on, do it. Like I said, they don't actually damage you. I believe they just drain your magic, or either sit there so that other enemies can hit you. Make me stronger.
I'm not gonna pull punches anymore. It is entitlement of whiny babies that feel they're owed everything and just can't fathom that, protecting your IP, but then you get the most obnoxious kind of, but if it's not on the market, how is it stealing? As unfortunate as it is, that's not how copyright and trademark works. Because, let's take a detour, because I'm tired of this argument, because especially with people that act like this is more of a thing, and you might convince the wrong person who trusts you to think this is a thing, because there are so many people, and I've seen big creators act like this. Now, some big creators even kind of know that they can't dip into this because they know this isn't a thing, but there's still this idea. The concept of abandonware is acted. The concept of abandonware is constantly cited as something that means if something is abandoned, that it legally, because it's abandoned, is completely okay for you to download and experience it because it's abandoned and cannot sort of legally.
Ha, bitch.
It's like, oh, I'm gonna wording that weird. Hate when I do that when I'm trying to make a good argument. It's like, the concept of abandonware is essentially pitched as, oh, when something is abandoned, it's considered abandonware. And if it's abandonware, it's completely okay. Except the thing is, first of all, there has never been a legal proceeding for abandonware. That doesn't exist. There has never been a legal precedent that actually establishes abandonware in any case law. Abandonware is just a concept that people use to explain, like, old 80s, like, PC games and shit.
That's literally what it was about. Also, that's another thing that's mistranslated. It's the Ronja spear. That's because it's supposed to be the Lonja spear, because it's the spear that it pierced Christ. So because of that, it's a holy weapon, Japanese R and L thing. You'll notice this game does that a lot. And here's where you pick up the handgun.
I'll just, I can change my tune a little bit just to establish it better. I'll explain what abandonware is. Abandonware legally is not a concept because there has never been case law for abandonware. That is not a thing. Abandonware has no legal case law. Abandonware is literally a concept of a bunch of PC games from the 80s and early 90s were made by companies that no longer exist, or the people involved in making them do not care. So the copyright and trademark is not being protected at all. So it is an abandoned thing. And at that point, it might as well be public domain because there is no one around protecting the copyright. Either because no one is around to protect the copyright, or anyone who's around to protect it doesn't care to. Especially because a lot of people that made games in the 80s and stuff were just small developers that were barely considered a company.
Or a bunch of, or a bunch of, like, PC magazines and shit would hold, like, programming contests and stuff, and at the time they seem good, but turned out to actually all be shady as fuck. Because it was basically them effectively getting people to make games for free, but pitching it as a contest.
Yes. A lot of that is abandoned by the nature of actually not being protected. But we have a bunch of fucking jackasses. Oh, if it's not on the market, it's abandonware. It's okay. No, it fucking isn't. Abandonware is a fan concept that vaguely describes games and programs that do not currently have copyright protection or what have you for one reason or another, and it's normally because they basically are either completely defunct, or the people who might be able to do something just do not care. When you give people this idea that because Nintendo hasn't sold Wario World on the GameCube in over 20 years that it's abandonware, stop putting that idea in people's heads because it's fucking not.
Like, it's not exactly the same, but another common misconception is a lot of people will, you'll notice, will say, oh, Toho made a fuck up when filing for, like, the trademark of the original 1954 Godzilla in America, so the American version is public domain. No, it isn't. That was an urban legend. Don't go posting that movie for free. They still own it. Because there's an urban legend that it's specifically the American version because they, like, fucked up when trademarking it or something. But like I said, that story...
That was always a story of they had mistyped, and semantically, because of a typo, is like...
I believe the story was, instead of having it be, like, Godzilla, one word, it was, like, Godzilla, basically God, like, dash Zilla, or something like that.
It was this idea that because they copyright...
Because they put it under a different name, it would be considered a...
different thing, semantically, because that's how copyright trademark works, but it just fucking bothers me. No! Old GameCube games Nintendo hasn't re-released, or any company hasn't re-released, because, you know what, since I'm just going down the list of things that bother me, let me do...
Things that annoy me.
Yes. Let me do the other one, because this literally only comes up with Nintendo, and people are still doing this like it's the fucking 90s, where everything was or is Nintendo.
Book 3, I believe it's in... I don't think it's... Damn it. Don't want to use that potion. There's a way to check what the books you have are, but I can't I can't remember how to do that. Is it in items? Those are like the only... yeah, Ancient Book 1. Oh, I do have the Ancient Book 1, 2, and 3. Okay, because I do have all of them now. In a minute I'll explain the thing after I fill out this area and start moving on to more progression.
Back to my ramble, because this fucking pisses me off, because in a modern sense, you should all fucking know better, but it's ridiculous that this still only comes up with Nintendo, and this never comes up with Sony and Microsoft. That we still act like Nintendo controls everything on their fucking platform. Because it just fucking irks me when people talk about Nintendo not re-releasing games, and they'll show footage of a game Nintendo didn't make.
When Arlo was bitching about the lack of legacy content on the Switch, he, at one point, he doesn't directly name it, but he shows footage of Zombies Ain't My Neighbors, and that's, that's basically manipulative editing, where you're inferring it's Nintendo's fault the reason this game wasn't released, or hasn't been re-released yet, except that game was published by LucasArts, meaning that game is owned by Disney now. Oh, and would you look at that, the modern re-release has Disney's name on it.
Just because it's on a Nintendo console doesn't mean they made it. Third parties exist! But for some reason, we forget third parties exist on Nintendo consoles. Oh, evil Nintendo. I've seen so many videos of people talking about...
Like I said, I've seen people do the same thing.
But it's only Nintendo!
Where again, they'll they'll not directly name it and not directly blame Nintendo, but they'll do the editing thing of, like I said, you're showing a game like Zombies Ain't My Neighbors or something, and you talk about the lack of, like, legacy content on the Switch, except this would be outside of Nintendo's hands because they didn't publish it.
maybe yell at the company that currently owns what you're bitching about. I've even seen people blatantly blame Nintendo and name drop games Nintendo didn't directly make. It's time for the question of the day and my overall thoughts on the topic. So, anyway, please try and be civil, but I feel like a lot more people might actually agree with this point versus the last couple of points I made in the last few questions I asked in the last few parts. But anyway, how many of you agree with me that it's ridiculous that even in a modern sense, when it comes to anything on a Nintendo console, a lot of people basically infer and imply that Nintendo controls everything that was ever on their consoles, no matter what the game in question is, even if it was a third-party game, meaning if you wanted that game to be re-released, you would need the cooperation of whoever made it in the first place, and I find it incredibly disingenuous that people will imply that Nintendo somehow controls all of these third-party games that Nintendo had little to nothing to do with, unless Nintendo is actually involved, in which case you have a point. Like how Nintendo helped fund Bayonetta 2 and 3. So you need Nintendo's involvement for 2 and 3, which is why 2 and 3 have only ever been on Nintendo consoles, because Nintendo basically controls 2 and 3. But over the years, most third-party games were never funded by, created by, or published by Nintendo. Just because a game was on a Nintendo console does not mean Nintendo gave them funding, it does not mean Nintendo made it, and it does not mean Nintendo published it. This weird double standard bothers me, because people are being really disingenuous when they mention how evil, greedy Nintendo is not letting you play all of these amazing games, and then they show these amazing games, and the games they're showing were made by other people. Like this one video that kept showing Skies of Arcadia Legends footage, and pretty much implying that evil, greedy Nintendo is the reason that game can't get a re-release, when I'm sorry, no, that's not how this works. That game was made by Sega, so it's up to them. Zombies Ate My Neighbors also comes up a lot, and that game also wasn't made by Nintendo at all. That game just happened to be on the Super Nintendo, but again, that doesn't mean Nintendo had anything to do with the game. And yeah, a lot of good third-party games exist, but I wish people would stop equating Nintendo to this evil, greedy, asshole-ish company that refuses to re-release all these games they don't legally have the rights to. No one does that for Sony or Microsoft. This is only ever done as a dig against Nintendo, because for some fucking reason, people can't understand that a third-party game exists outside of Nintendo's control unless Nintendo directly funded it, created it, or helped publish it. And even if it was a third-party game, Nintendo could have helped do some development if it was a joint venture type of game. But otherwise, third parties were left to do whatever they wanted, unless the game was directly funded by, developed by, or published by Nintendo. And I really do hate that tons of people keep creating this stupid false narrative that Nintendo is preventing these games from being re-released, when no, they're not. I wish we would stop doing that, because that really does confuse people that don't know any better, and it makes it sound like Nintendo is far more unreasonable, when no, they're not. It's not up to them to re-release all these third-party games they had no direct involvement with. And yet we continue to push that narrative because it makes Nintendo look bad, even though, once again, Nintendo had nothing to do with these games. Anyway, you can leave your thoughts, opinions, and answers in the comments, or you can leave them on social media. All of my social media links, as well as my Discord links, are in the video description. Now, as always, I need to be a shill for a minute. If you subscribe to the channel, and if you follow me on social media, that really helps our communities grow. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope I will see you all next time. So, as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody. I hope you come back someday. See you later.